Welcome to Fostering Family Resiliency Through Art with ARTrelief co-founders Gabby Kotler, LMHC, and Cecile Rev, I say it right? Sorry, LMHC, and the Chris Walsh Center. I'm Natalie McCollum, the graduate assistant at the Chris Walsh Center, as well as a counseling intern at ARTrelief. I'm joined by Therese Antrim Roberts, the center coordinator, and of course, Cecile and Gabby. Before we begin, I'll read the Chris Walsh Center mission statement, then make a few announcements and provide some information about how tonight's event will run. So our mission, the Chris Walsh Center is here to serve our community by providing information for families and educators about the continuum of educational support available to students with disabilities, students who are gifted, and students with unmet needs. The center offers support, workshops, and other programming for families, educators, student support professionals, administrators, and advocates in Massachusetts. The center also conducts some scholarly research and provides educator preparation and professional development. We're able to offer you this incredible programming thanks to a generous grant from the Sudbury Foundation. Much of the work we do is funded through grants. For this reason, and so we can continue to meet the needs of local families, it is incredibly important that we get your feedback on the events we offer. As such, later in the event, we'll provide you with time to fill out a short survey so we can learn from your feedback and continue to offer more enriching events like this one. Other events we have coming up include the last two meetings of our spring 2025 caregiver support group, as well as the last educator training in our Promoting Student Resilience in Pre-K through 12 Schools series with Dr. Simone Catraba. The links to register for these will be in the chat. And finally, on April 28th at 7:00 p.m., we'll be hosting a virtual ADHD panel. The registration link for this event will be published shortly, so keep an eye on our newsletter to register for that event. I'm going to go ahead and put those other ones in the chat now. Those will get emailed out as well, so you don't have to rush off and check them out. And this year, we'll be celebrating 5 years of the Chris Walsh Center, and we need your support. To keep our programs at no or low cost, we're launching a fundraising campaign to continue providing essential caregiver support groups, professional development workshops, and resources for families, educators, and professionals. If you found these sessions helpful, please consider making a donation to support our work. And then I'll share that link in the chat as well. Yeah. If you'd like to speak during the event, please feel free to use the raise your hand feature and you'll be invited to do so. But importantly, speaking during the event will make it so you're part of the recording that we post to YouTube. Otherwise, if you prefer to type your questions or comments, please feel free to type them in the chat at any time, and I'll read them for Gabby and Cecile to answer and engage with when the time comes. Now on to tonight's main event, Fostering Family Resilience Through Art. Cecile, it's going to trip me up every time. Cecile Rev, LMHC, started to dream up ARTrelief shortly after she began professional work as an expressive arts therapist in 2000. After almost a decade in the mental health field in various settings, early intervention, elder care, outpatient family services, home and school-based services, community arts, and after-school programs, she planted the seeds for ARTrelief out in her home studio in 2008.
It's this room right here.
2 years later, sorry, I know she said she'd let people in, and yet out of habit, I just went for it. 2 years later, Gabriella Kotler joined her to open the center in Watertown, Massachusetts, now in Waltham, Massachusetts. Cecile was born and raised in Cameroon, West Africa, with multicultural and spiritually inclusive values. She has worked with all ages and thrives in diversity, speaking fluent French, conversational Spanish, and some American Sign Language. For the past 22 years, she has counseled people and supervised therapists on issues of anxiety, mood disorders, sensory processing disorder, trauma, adoption, loss, ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, developmental and cognitive disabilities, medical issues, Alzheimer's disease, addiction, LGBTQIA+ and gender issues, pregnancy issues, caregiving issues, work-related stress, couples, families, and existential issues. Gabby Kotler, LMHC, speaks fluent Spanish and Hebrew, and was trained in photography, film, music, and movement. She has experience with authentic movement, yoga, theater improvisation, contact improvisation, and martial arts. For the past 22 years, she's been supporting children, adults, and families of all kinds. She has experience working with individuals having a chronic mental illness and/or substance abuse issues, individually or in groups. Before she began co-founding ARTrelief, she was assistant program director of an adult day treatment program in downtown Boston, where she was responsible for facilitating clinical and expressive arts therapy groups, coordinating intakes, creating treatment plans, managing risk, and supervising counselors and expressive arts therapists. She created an inclusive space and LGBTQ programs specializing in LGBTQ issues and trauma. Gabby is an activist and an educator in this area of specialization. If you're interested in learning more about ARTrelief, I'll provide the link to their site at the end of the event. So now I'll turn it over to Cecile and Gabby.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you. What a lovely introduction. So welcome, everybody, and we're excited to be here. We've been loving having Natalie as an intern, and it's really nice to be able to give back and talk about the things we're passionate about. So I will share my screen, and hopefully I do this. Let's see, where am I? Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. So the power of expressive arts therapy. We're going to talk about that and how it can strengthen families. A little bit about ARTrelief. So we are an innovative expressive arts therapy center where religious freedom, equity, inclusion, and diversity are valued and considered as strengths in our community. We specialize in wraparound community expressive arts and mental health services, training, and education. And since 2008, we've been servicing families and individuals across the lifespan at our center, in homes, schools, community programs, and we collaborate also with intensive care medical programs and also residential programs. ARTrelief makes services easily accessible to low-income individuals and families with disabilities and individuals suffering from chronic illness. And today we service over 350 clients. It's probably more than that because this is an old slide. And we have a team of 15 mental health workers and administrators on an average of 5 students. It's actually 9 now, student interns and volunteers. I love this quote from Frida Kahlo. The only thing I know is that I paint because I need to. So where does expressive therapy come from? Through evidence on the walls of caves and ancient documents and depictions discovered on prehistoric pottery and in traditional ritual practices handed down over many centuries, it becomes clear that some thousands of years ago, Aboriginal people in all continents engaged in aesthetic forms of expression for myriad purposes, to mark significant passages and transitions in life of a community, to celebrate festive and solemn occasions, and to express a feeling, to pray and worship, and to heal the sick. And this quote is from Robert Landy. It's an image of a expression. Where does expressive therapy comes from? So in the 1940s, veterans hospitals in the United States started to introduce art modalities as alternative treatment approaches. In the 50s, early childhood educators in Europe were using the arts to promote child development. In the 60s, the walls separating studio art and communities began to fall, so process art became a thing. In the 70s, a formulation of an expressive arts approach to therapy started to appear. And today, expressive therapy is recognized internationally and nationally. It is used in a variety of settings, such as schools, hospitals, community programs, and all types of counseling agencies. So what we offer at ARTrelief are outpatient expressive arts therapy and mental health counseling. Most of our clients come because they want expressive therapy, but we'll have occasional people who are not sure about that and really want to just talk. and that's totally fine. And even when we do that, we continue to be expressive therapists. So even a person doesn't want to do art or move, we will reflect back on, their body and images and metaphors. So we will still use those methods, even though we're not necessarily practicing those arts. We offer therapeutic mentoring for at-risk youth delivered in the community, and that's a wonderful service that can really strengthen what we're doing already in individual therapy and sometimes makes therapy more accessible because children might learn in a very concrete way and might need extra repetition, and this service really allows that for happening. We provide education via internships, workshops, and trainings on topics of mental health, expressive arts therapy, wellness, and inclusion. We offer community creative spaces, places to play, to make art, to do movement, and to make music. And that program is called Art Lab. And we also rent our space for either workshops or yoga or private events like birthday parties. And oftentimes people with disabilities really enjoy that space because it's very sensory sensitive. I like to talk about art in therapy versus art as therapy. So everybody can do art. Everybody is an artist, and all forms of art are therapeutic, just like nature. You go for a walk, you enjoy a tree, you enjoy the fresh air. You don't have to be an environmentalist or a scientist to really enjoy the environment. And it's the same for art. If you're sitting in a museum looking at a painting, you're going to experience some benefits, some wellness benefits from just watching art or watching movement, or watching a play, for example, or listening to music. So you don't have to be an artist per se to be able to benefit. So that's on one side of the continuum. On the other side of the continuum, there's art in therapy. And what that means is that people who do art in therapy, like us, expressive arts therapists, we're trained to be able to use intentionally, specifically what art at what time to reach a specific goal. So that's the whole continuum. And in between, there are many, many versions of that. So art making is intrinsically therapeutic. However, making art needs to be differentiated with expressive therapy. Anyone can use art as therapy, and we talked about that, and only trained expressive arts therapists have the knowledge and training and skill to use art in therapy as a tool to reach clinical goals. Oh, my slide's not moving. Oh, okay. Oh, that works. What is expressive therapy? So expressive therapy is a multi-arts approach to counseling, utilizing verbal and nonverbal modes of expression. This quote is from Natalie Rogers, who's the daughter of Carl Rogers. You probably know if you studied therapy or clinical counseling. We express inner feelings by creating outer forms. Expressive arts refers to using the emotional, intuitive aspects of ourselves in various media. To use the art expressively means going into our inner realms to discover feelings and to express themselves through visual and movement, sound, writing, and drama. This is one example of how to do art, and I like to share it because it's really simple. So for example, you can create a feelings map. There's an example of one that I made a while ago. And it starts with really calming down and attuning to the body, maybe doing some breath exercise or just listening to music to quiet. And then to pick a color that matches a feeling. It doesn't have to be those specific feelings, but that's the method that I used here. So sadness, joy, anger, very basic feelings and common to everybody. And then you draw a landscape or a map of how you're feeling in that present moment. So it's very, very simple, and it doesn't have to be concrete or represent anything. It can be abstract. It can just be smudges of color and shapes. And that allows a person to really offload and externalize what they're feeling. And then once it's out there, for some reason, that's easier to comprehend and easier to manage. Oh, I'm having difficulty with my slide.
How did you figure that?
I don't know.
You ended up, no, you're drawing.
Oh, that's
Okay,
good,
X out of here.
but I'm not able to.
Um,
Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, now it can escape. Nope,
You have dots on it.
that's okay.
Oh, when you click that, it does annotate. So I think you have to cancel.
It did something on me without my permission,
Yeah, you're on annotate. So go to,
but I should be able to Sorry about that. There,
maybe you stop sharing.
there. I'm gonna start sharing again. Start over
But first go to it outside of the slide.
like this. And my slide. Where's my slide?
I think it's behind.
It's not it. Sorry about that. Okay.
You're still sharing.
Oh, jeez.
You have to go here, stop share.
There. Find the mouse.
Fine.
We were just talking about how it doesn't matter how long Zoom has been normalized for, none of us fully have it down.
Okay,
arrows
we're
now.
back in business. But where are they? I don't see them anymore, but that's okay. I don't see you anymore.
Do you
We can
guys
see your slides, so you're good.
That's the most important thing. Okay. What is expressive arts therapy? Part 2. So in the United States, expressive therapy is an established health service similar to CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, play therapy, speech therapy, or occupational therapy. It provides an alternative means of communication for those who can't find the words to express feelings, and for young people in particular, or people with expressive language difficulties, and adults at the end of their life stage, for example, access to verbal and nonverbal therapies are particularly helpful. In contrast with art made in an art class, an expressive therapy and artistic expression is defined by a creation which articulates the client's life experience, and it moves him or her, as well as the therapist, into a new dimension where he or she will have more perspective and insight in that particular matter. So it's very important to preface that the end product is really not as relevant as the process itself. So there are different modalities, that's what we call them. And the common ones are art therapy, music therapy, dance and movement therapy, drama therapy, bibliotherapy, and expressive arts therapy. They're used in individual sessions or with couples, families, groups, and entire communities also. It's a person-centered, inclusive, and accessible approach. At any developmental stage, it can be accessible, neurodiverse profiles, ethnic and cultural inclusion, and any communication styles and languages. It may be particularly helpful to clients who are pre-verbal or nonverbal and or who feel emotionally restricted in helping them access unconscious material. Expressive arts therapists draw from specific artistic skills as well as their training and education in evidence-based verbal and nonverbal counseling techniques. The creative process is skillfully used to stimulate the imagination, engage the senses. The part of the body is very important to activate the breath and get the body moving to improve psychological health, cognitive abilities, sensory motor functions, and to reach specific clinical goals such as developing speech or to overcome trauma. Art making is inherently perceptual and sensory based, and it involves the brain and the body in ways that verbal language does not. And by shifting from one art form to the other, we may gain deeper insight and transformative potential in the healing process. So this shifting from one art form from the other, so for example, we might start moving, and then we might do an art piece, a visual art piece, and then we might tell a story about it. So those are different modalities that we would shift from. That's called intermodal transfer, and it's not used that much anymore, but that's the essence of expressive therapy, and it distinguishes expressive therapy from other disciplines such as art, music, or dance therapy, Although these days, most people who do art or music, they combine it with other modalities. This is a beautiful quote from Emile Zola. If you shut up truth and bury it under the ground, it will grow and gather to itself such explosive power that the day it bursts through, it will blow up everything in its way, which is why it's very important to keep expressing. In expressive arts therapy, self-actualization does not rely on the patient's ability to verbalize or even cognitively understand their own experience. A good example of that is I've done a lot of groups or work with people with Alzheimer's. And obviously, those are not folks that I can have conversations with necessarily. And then just even the experience of laying down certain materials, certain colors, certain textures, and them having the choice to be able to pick things to put on their paper or their canvas, that in itself is a form of self-actualization. And then there's the aspect of art making being an action therapy. So the moment we're doing an action, we experience immediate relief. So that's another bonus. Nothing activates the brain so extensively as music. So this is a conclusion from another slide, but like other forms of therapy, expressive therapy can be practiced in various ways, depending on the goal and why a person is seeking support. Some people may need a self-directed space where they can have control over how the time is structured, and others may need more focus and have very specific needs and goals to achieve. In this case, a therapist may offer therapeutic interventions as a means to access new skills. Can be helpful in building community or reaching specific clinical individual goals. So some benefits of expressive therapy: it provides a sense of control and mastery. It provides positive health outcomes. It can improve physical shape. It can improve or slow down decline in overall functioning, especially for the elder population. It's viable and less costly, non-pharmaceutical option, reducing anxiety, depression, and reducing the need for antipsychotic medication sometimes. We've done a lot of work in crisis units or hospitals, in inpatient units. I remember one specific time where one of the patients came out of her room and I had clay and she was saying to me, I'm going to go to the emergency. I can't. And I gave her the clay. And then within 15 minutes, her anxiety had gone down to 0. And she was able to stay the whole group. So that saved her and the system a lot of money. And also, she was able to feel really proud of herself that she didn't require and depend on such a process to be able to feel better. It improves social engagement, reduces isolation. It can improve communication and self-expression, increase quality of life. It's a client-centered treatment. It can help with relaxation, mindfulness, stress management. It invites playfulness and a sense of humor. So it really fosters resiliency in that way. It improves cognitive function and reserve. It can be stimulating so it can reduce boredom, especially for people who are nonverbal or have some senses that are not functioning to their maximum, or specifically elders who tend to have lower vision, lower capacity to hear what's going on, and they can be bored because they're understimulated. It fosters a strong sense of identity, increased self-esteem, nurtures spirituality, and supplies meaning to someone's life. It can replace longing and disappearing with wisdom and integrity. Okay, so we're gonna, oh good, I can get out of here. We're
you
gonna
find a way
stop
to
share
share?
there. For a second, we'll stop share. So we're gonna do a little experiential if you're up for it. It starts with going in your space that you are right now, whether it's your home, your office, or wherever you are, and gathering, I would say 5 objects. If you want 5 to 10, no more than 10, because it'll get complicated. And then bring them back, and we're going to do a little spontaneous art.
And if anyone feels comfortable putting their cameras on, that would be really helpful
Yeah.
for this section.
Great. So I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that. So go around your space and come back in 5 minutes.
You can go in your recycling bin, you
Yeah.
can go in your actual objects that you use at home. It can be things from the kitchen, things from anywhere, just objects.
Yeah.
You're not telling them to. They're gonna bring anything. It's here.
Okay. So hopefully you were able to be playful with your choices. And while everybody's kind of coming back, I wanted to just offer some ideas in terms of if you're doing this with children. So if you tell a child, let's go in the space and find things, they might, have a difficulty scanning the room and picking objects, or they might be anxious about what to pick. Hi. So some scaffolding that you could use is to narrow it down. So you could say, pick things of a certain color or pick things of a certain shape. You could say a theme, like pick the things that we cook or things that we wear, or
Or you can say, go get one object from each room in the house.
yeah. Or you can do it local, get things from the recycling or get things from the bathroom or any room that you feel comfortable your child getting things from. So you can always scaffold it if there's resistance. Sometimes it could be for sensory reasons. It's hard to look, it's hard to discriminate visually. It's they're tired, so you can really scale it down and narrow it. I mean, it's in a way to invite playfulness. and silliness, and get out of the routine and open up the imagination.
So now if you brought your object and you're back, maybe just raise your hand or write it in the chat so we know if we can move to the next step of actual sculpting.
Hi. Avery, you want to be the first one, or you're still working on it?
So wait, you haven't given the instruction about how to.
We jumped ahead a little.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
jumping ahead. So once you have your 5 objects or 5 to 10 objects, you can now try to put them together into some kind of sculpture. So work on the physicality of it, of like either mounting or connecting, or Cecile can show you a
I'll give
slide
you an
of
example.
an example.
A friend of mine did this one day on a rainy day. Let's see, right there. That's an example of a spontaneous sculpture.
So random things from the house. There's sunglasses, a toilet paper roll, a little person running in a coffee whatever box or whatever you call it. So anything, and now just try to physically fit the things together in a way that creates a new installation. And whoever wants to share can share. In a couple minutes, take your time, kind of playing with it, and just have fun with it. And this is something you can do with your child and kind of negotiate together what goes where, and if it falls, it's part of the fun and the play.
And it's also a mindfulness exercise in some way, because you're slowing down, you're paying attention to details.
You're noticing objects in a different way. A toilet paper becomes a sculpting object instead of just a toilet paper, so their function shifts.
So it creates some flexibility of thinking outside of the box, some problem-solving skills.
And definitely collaboration, because you have to work together to come to an agreement of how this sculpture is going to work.
And you can also then use the same objects to like take turns making different sculptures. So it's unlimited. If you play with several people, everybody can take the same objects and make a different sculpture.
Do you want to stop sharing so we can see people?
Yeah.
So let us know if you're finished and if you want to share what you got. In the meantime, we can show you, I guess, what we got here. So just randomly pick some objects.
We've got some very interesting things in this house.
Back up so you see the.
Yeah. So there's a Buddha sculpture and a
Minecraft box and
Minecraft box, an art piece that my kids made a while ago, a Pepsi can from the 1970s, a Christmas ornament, and a piece of a magic trick game. So, and then what you can do also is add a layer of like you can create a title for it. So mine could be in preparation for a big day.
does anybody want to share their sculpture? And there's no right or wrong. There's no judgment.
Oh, we got something.
Hi.
Hi.
Not quite sure what I would call it. Family life.
I see it. I see that. Yeah.
The coaster I always have my cup of tea on. My kids are always doing art and baking together. My youngest loves penguins, so it was very quick for me to grab a penguin. There's about 15 in every room of the house.
That's great. So it's interesting just through that you're telling a story, and that's another element. So when you create a sculpture like this, you can tell your child or you can model, tell me the story of this sculpture, and maybe that sculpture saying things like, I am the totem of the family, and I, I see mom have her coffee every morning, and you know, so that can go on. So it's a good also storytelling activity. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
Great.
great.
All right, Avery's ready.
All right.
But I made this little cat thing, and
The camera's up there.
and then I turned this paper and pipe cleaners and
Wow.
and letter beads into a little kind of bag looking thing. And
That's so-
A lot of it's like a mobile, like it moves. That's really cool.
Whoop.
Interact.
And very jingly.
Feels like it can shape shift too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Thank you, Avery. Does anybody else want to share? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just came from working from the street, so I hear just like grab something. I don't gonna go downstairs to the kitchen, so I grabbed something that I have in the room, and I had this. I'm gonna show you. So, yeah, so I create this, and then now looking what that mean, and I was okay. I need to save. That is my saving to go on vacation. I cannot forget the umbrella because you never know if it's gonna rain. And then take my deodorant, my little that is a cream, toothbrush, and then I was okay. And this is for massage my head when I'm relaxing because take vacation and take time off is important.
Nice.
Mhm.
What would you title this? The vacation package?
Vacation packet always take mini vacation. Doesn't have to be expensive. So remember
That's right.
myself to take those time, little
Ah,
moments.
sometimes a vacation can be reading a book, listening
Yeah.
to a show, taking a walk.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a big thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Or I don't have to have money to spend. Just take time for myself.
Mhm. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing.
Anybody else would like to share? Okay. Great. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. Let me go back to sharing the slide. Let's see. So the sculpture can be just some versions of it to just create a sculpture of the day, you know, could be a self-portrait. So somebody can go take objects that represents themselves. It could be the mood of the day. You can sculpt a specific feeling like your anxiety right now. A hero sculpture, it could be abstract. It could be a sculpture of a house, stick figures, etc., etc. So many different possibilities. So now we're going to talk a little bit about doodling. We picked doodling because it's so easy to do that. You don't need a lot of material. You don't need some grand technical skill. It's accessible to anyone really. Anybody who can scribble can doodle. And it has some pretty significant benefits. It's very meditative. It can help concentration, memory. It can activate or stimulate your visual, auditory, and kinesthetic senses. It's a visual language, so it's definitely a way, just mark making is a language. It's a way to express yourself. You know, sometimes when you're doodling, you're doing rhythms and repetitions. So study shows that it produces a change in the brain state. It can have a really calming effect. And it's definitely going to ignite creativity. It'll put a person more, will make creativity more accessible. So there are many, many, many methods for doodling. These are just some visual examples that I put there. Nothing on this. Ooh. So one thing I really like to say is that if somebody has a hard time doodling or just scribbling, sometimes adding music can be stimulating. That can be holding, and you can instruct your child, or you can try that. You can doodle to music. So when the music changes, then your doodle changes. So that can be a way to guide you if just doodling out of the blue is difficult. So we're going to try a little technique. So if you have a paper, you can try that. All you need is a paper and a marker, any color,
Or a pen if you don't have a
or a
marker.
pen, or even a pencil. And what you can do to start is place random dots on your paper. So I'm going to do that at the same time, so I don't go too fast. So I'm going to use a Sharpie because that's what I got. Well, actually, no, I'm going to use a marker so it doesn't go through. Sharpies are very strong, so they will go through the paper. So if you don't want to ruin your table or your tablecloth,
Put it on there.
make sure to use something like just a marker. So you put dots in a random place, and then you will connect them.
Step by step, so you can do dots if you and then show them what you
Yeah.
mean.
So here I just put, just literally just dots everywhere, that's all. And then I'm gonna connect the dots using different types of lines. So it could be squiggles, could be dots, it could be thick lines, thin lines, use
Could
your
be
imagination.
Straight line could be a curvy line. You're just playing. You can challenge yourself to connect every 2 dots you connect with a different kind of line. That's a structure. Or you can choose one type of line that you're in the mood for and just do it for all the dots. Natalie, I think there's someone to admit.
So this is what I got. Kind of looks like a fish. And you can fill the whole paper or just a part of the paper. And then you can choose to fill out the shapes with patterns, or you can just do colors. So here's an example of different patterns that I wanted to just share. So really nothing extraordinary. And here I put them in a square box, but you can do them in your shape. So we can try. I'll fill out 1 or 2 so you can see. And then when you fill out, you can do it in the same color marker, or you can change the color. And really, it's about curiosity. So here I filled 1. And notice what happens. Like I was filling it up thinking, oh, I don't really like that. And then notice those thoughts, and you're practicing just being curious about it instead of being judgmental, which is not easy. That's why it's a practice. And if doing too many, if doing designs is hard, then it can also just be about picking colors. And then I'll show you an example of what that can look like. Combinations of doodles, I mean, of patterns and colors. There's no wrong way to do it. That's the beauty of art. And you don't have to use markers. You can use crayons. You can use pastels. You can use paint. And if you're using paint, you want to make sure your paper is thick enough so the paint can be absorbed by the paper and it doesn't rip. And that's really looking like a fish line. So here I did combination of color and just patterns, exploring and being curious about it. And you can also do collaging if that's not if your child is not into doing drawing, you can pick some colors, some images from magazines, and they can also fill the different sections with collage material. That's 50 minutes.
7:50.
Yeah.
At 7. 6 or 7 hours. So you can leave time for questions.
So another form of doodling, I'm just going to quickly talk about it while you can continue drawing if you want. Neurographic art, it's similar. It's just a different type of doodling. It's a technique that was invented by Dr. Pavel Piskarev in 2014. And it looks like this. So that's an example where you do lines first. So the lines that are from left to right, and then the lines that are from top to bottom, those are the first ones you do. And then you do circles in different parts, random places. And then once again, you have just different compartments that you can fill in with either scribbles or colors. And then if you notice on the image there, the corners are rounded out. So that's the particular signature of neurographic art. They round out the corners, and the rounding of the corner is supposed to have a psychological benefit of calming and relaxing. Maybe it's the detail and the slowing down. So in the repetitive pattern, that can be a little hard for younger kids because it gets really like tedious to do it. But for adults who really want to slow themselves down, or older children like teens, then that's very accessible. This is another way to doodle. You can start with the letter and just keep connecting random letters. You can do the same thing with numbers. And these are just ideas if you're doing it with somebody and their mind goes blank and they don't know what to do. These are just scaffoldings, one way to start. And we'll talk about that later. Does anybody want to share their doodle? Ah, cool.
Fun.
It's fun, yeah. Whimsical. Thank you for sharing. So in this slide, oh, you're going to share, Avery? Yeah?
Like,
Yeah, it's time, babe.
this one.
Ooh.
I like how you cut it. There we go.
Nuns.
Very cool. Is that a character on the for my left, it's your right?
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I usually draw a character kind of like that.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And so to end, I really want to just remind everybody, like, art can be made with all the supplies you have in your house. Of course, the basic, normal art supplies like markers, crayons, pencils. But a lot of cooking supplies can be used for art, or shaving cream, magazines in your house, rocks or leaves, any kind of nature material. Kids love the texture. If you put a piece of cardboard down and give them glue and a bunch of nature material, they're going to glue up a storm. They will be able to do something with that, I can guarantee you. And then just other traditional art supplies that are useful to have if you really want to create an art space for your family. Different kinds of paints, journals, different color paper, which can be stimulating, glue, scissors, pastels, oil or chalk. Oil pastels are more like crayons. They're oily, and when you apply them on the paper, you have to put a lot of pressure. And if you have kids who are sensory seeking, for example, crayons and oil pastels are very satisfying. Or if people, I've worked with people who had a lot of anger, and oil pastel is very nice because they can really dig into the material. And then chalk pastel are a lot like chalk. And so the people who like to draw with smooth material and powdery material and like to smudge, and so it's powdery, you have to like that texture. So those are really fun to have around. This is another quick activity I can just share. It's called Create Your Bouquet. So you can present you can present with different flowers. It doesn't have to be these, and you can assign a feeling or something to each of these things, like insight, comfort, change, rest, and then you create a bouquet of what you need. What would you like to need, and what would you like to have in your life? This is a fun thing we did during COVID, because we did a lot of Zoom, and it was a staycation suitcase. We were talking about mini vacations. So there you go. You can do a collage of what would you do for your staycation. So what do you like to have a pleasant time in your home? What's important to you? This is self-portrait made with collage material. So you can do magazines, cardboard, any kind of thing. Or 3D material like beads, you can go crazy. You can do it with sand, dirt, natural material. Draw your mood, we talked about, and then just using art as a release in general is super helpful. All right, so I want to make sure I leave some time for everybody to ask some questions. And you can tell me if you have specific questions about your specific family, and I can see if I can help you with some ideas.
So again, feel free, if you want to ask questions out loud, you're welcome to do that. Or if you want to put them in the chat, I will be happy to ask them out loud for you.
Could be questions like, if you have a hard time starting art, how to start, or specific material you're curious about that you haven't used, or situations you've had with your child where it didn't go the way you planned, and maybe some suggestion could be helpful.
Or if you
Neil,
have
I've got one for you. Sorry, Gabby. Yeah, so I was gonna ask, like, sometimes when we're rushing around, right? Like, I think sometimes it can be really hard to, like, our kids might be ready to do art activities, right? But do you have any tips for parents to, like, slow down and join that space? How do we get ourselves into that, like, creative or playful space?
For the parent?
Yeah, for the parent.
Yeah. Well, I would say make sure that the material that is being used are things that are exciting to you, that's stimulating. And maybe you need to first think, okay, how am I feeling? That could be the first step. How am I feeling? Why am I kind of having a hard time? And maybe you need a pre-thing. Maybe you need to go make yourself a cup of tea to settle, a nice candle, and really create an art space. And then find material that are stimulating to you, that are exciting to you, and see if that helps. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't, maybe also not putting an expectation that you're going to do art and you're going to be fully into it. because sometimes we're not, and we start, and as we go, things happen, and we start to be more relaxed, and we start to be more engaged, and we follow that and engage further.
Yeah, and I want to add to that in the context of parenting, that if we are thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm going to pause right now to do art because I have to do the dishes and the laundry and this and that, and the 10-15 minutes that you take from your time to actually sit and do the art with your child pays off so much, because you will have a better behaved child and a more cooperative child, and their bucket will be filled because you spent those, even if it's just 10-15 minutes a day, doing something meaningful with them and tuning into what it is that they're into. I always give an example, and it doesn't have to be art. If your child is into soccer, it can also be soccer, but this presentation is about the art. But I always give an example with one of my sons, that if I tell him, please set up the table, for example, his first response would be, you do it. But if I did 20 minutes of playing soccer with him and then I say, please set up the table, he doesn't even think twice, and he just sets the table, and it's the same child. So it really pays off to put that 20 minutes in.
And the other thing I would say is sometimes that happens to me. My child wants to do something, maybe it's art, maybe it's something else, and I'm not in the mood because I'm tired or my head is not there. Sometimes I'll just do it with the child. So you don't have to do your own piece. You can observe your child, be a witness to your child, and then add suggestions or add a thing or participate in their art making. Or maybe you'll be the commentary. So you don't have to be doing exactly what your child is doing if you're not into it. If it's not the material you want, and if you tried to negotiate and it didn't go the right way. Because the best thing obviously is to find the art that you're excited about, but that's not always, you're not always on the same wavelength of your child, depending on their age and all that. So you can participate without necessarily doing your own art. You can still be in it and be part of it.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead.
So at home, I have the eldest kid who loves art, and it's very calming for her. And so that's what she wants to sit down and do. And her younger sister wants to be there, wants to join in. And so we'll be trying to do art as a way of kind of being mindful and creating like this kind of calming space. But the youngest kid will often get frustrated very angrily when she can't draw to the same level as her elder sister. So do you have a way to help like a script or something for the younger? Because I don't want to just take my pencil and be like, let me do it for you. I want to help her with that frustration, but work through it, not just remove the frustration and make everything okay.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two ways to look at it, I think, for Sen, and maybe you have other ideas, but one, you could make it into a collaboration. If your older daughter can draw really well, she could draw something and the younger one could color it. So it could be a thing that they do together. Or you can scaffold the drawing, just like we were doing. You could do dots, and then she can follow the dots and draw something. You can have tracing paper, and she could trace art. So that it doesn't have to be all hand lifted, and on her own. Yeah, I mean, there's many ways you could scaffold it for her. They also have art books where they have, the squares and what, just like when you're
Step by
learning,
step how to draw.
when you're learning how to write, they have the ones with the dots. So there are books out there that you could look for that have, some scaffolding for the new artists. Or just a developmental stage where she's at.
Okay,
And
thank you.
one more thing I can add is that you can do sensory art, that it's not about the result looking like you drew an object and you can tell what object it is, more about sensory art exploration. So sometimes like pouring paint on a canvas and kind of playing with the canvas and letting the paint like go in different directions, and there's no need for control, and it comes out beautiful no matter how skilled or non-skilled you are, because it's really just like random. Or another one is marbling, which like they have those little kits where you can put water and little dots of paint, and then you mix it with a stick, and then you put a paper and take it out, and it stamps whatever design was in the water. So those are things that you don't need to be skilled or talented or old enough to do. Anyone can do it, and it comes out really pretty. So those are fun things to explore together.
How old is your youngest?
She's 4.
She's 4. Okay, yeah. So she's at an age where she really needs the tactile sensory art. They have something that smaller kids really like is rubbing plates too. So it's like a plastic, you can also rub anything. You can rub coins or whatever, but they have different texture, and you can rub it with crayons, and then you remove the paper, and it has lines, and you can then color inside of that. So that could be a step to create art. And I think also natural material. We have at our center, we have bins of dried roses and dried flowers and dried acorns, like leaves. And if I take the bin out, the smaller kids will just be like, wow, and they'll take things out, and you put a piece of cardboard on the paper, you give them glue, and then they're going to go to town with that. They just love the tactile sensory stuff and 3D stuff.
Great,
And it
thank you.
makes sense because they have less fine motor skills. They're not, they're not supposed to be able to draw the same way.
Gabby, your marbling paired with the sensory stuff reminded me of our shaving cream with watercolor. So if you take like watercolor paper and you can cut it into shapes, and then you take shaving cream and you like spray it with watercolor, you can take your paper and put it kind of like face down in it for a minute, and then you like take a ruler or something and scrape it off, and it comes out really beautiful and really fun looking, and like it can be kind of marbled with different colors, and it has that sensory tactile part and a finished, like, like we've done like butterflies and sea creatures and just whatever shapes the kids were interested in. And we've either pre-prepared those or like done like a stencil where they could cut it out if they weren't ready to draw that themselves. But that one's really, really fun. We've done that with the kids at ARTrelief before and had a blast. So
yeah, stencils are also a great one for kids who don't have the fine motor yet to draw. Yeah.
Any advice? My daughter really into art. And she's pretty good at it. She doesn't know this, but she won the 5th grade yearbook cover. But she probably spent like 30 hours on that particular piece. But I have a hard time with managing supplies and having her be like so into something and then she doesn't touch it. So she was gonna crochet, and I got a bunch of yarn because it was like Michael's was moving and it was a thing. And she like did a little bit and then doesn't touch it again. And today she came home from art camp. I had to pick her up early, and they did an activity that has watercolors in the back, and then she's supposed to use oil pastels to plant flowers on the front. She's like, we don't have oil pastels at home. I'm like, we have regular pastels. We don't. I was like, we have like almost everything, but one thing we don't have is oil pastels. And like, I can go out and get the oil pastels, but then it's like she'll touch it and like like she was into comic booking and she was really getting into it. So she went to comic book at the art school, and they had the alcohol markers. So I got her the alcohol. It just managing the supplies and the crafts and like her interest goes one thing to another thing. I want to cultivate the artist in her, but like
So
I
that
asked her
is
something, and then like the alcohol markers, and she hasn't comic booked in like 6 or 7 weeks now. Like, so.
Yeah, that is tricky because I mean, sometimes you can have like some supplies and put some out and keep some in a closet and then rotate them, because then you bring them back out, they're new. So you can try to do that, like if she's disinterested, just take it away from her, stop, put it in a Tupperware in a closet and take it out in 5 weeks or whatever and take something else. So you could try to do that. The other thing you could try to do is if you know other families who have a kid who loves art, you could have like supplies that you share, you rotate. So if somebody is into something, they'll use it for like 4 or 5 weeks and then they pass it on to the neighbor gives them something. You could have some kind of swap system because I'm sure you're not the only parent with this problem.
I actually, just to add to that, I've just had a quick Google because in our local town, we have a craft swap that happens every year. And I've just looked there, like it looks like lots of the other local towns do the same thing. It's quite often the library, and you
Yeah.
just go and it's free. You bring your failed craft activities and things, and then you swap them.
Yeah,
Nice. I love it.
that's great. Yeah.
They just
Thank
did
you.
one at our library too. And Gabby or Cecile, do you know the name of, because there is a secondhand art supply store in the area, but I can't remember the name of it. I can find it and make sure we have it on our resource list somewhere.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I know there's one in in the greater Boston area. I don't know if it's directly near, anyone in the in this group, but I know there is a secondhand art store nearby.
Yeah. And you can try to have an agreement with her that you cap it a certain amount at once, that you can rotate, but and I think that the limits actually can enforce creativity. If you think about if you think about playing an instrument, if somebody's learning a hand drum, just like a little drum, and that's all they have, there's a million ways to do that beat. And so we don't really, sometimes children think that they need a million things to feel creative or to produce things, but really they don't. And you can do a lot with one specific thing. So maybe it's also about taking the material that she does had and doing some research of this is a different way you can use that. You were using it this way, but you could use it this way, and that might re-engage her with that specific material.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question I have, I know you talked about it a little bit, about ARTrelief. But while you're here, do you want to talk a little bit more about it? If anybody here was interested in how
Sure.
best, how best to.
Well, I was just thinking about when you were saying, the supplies, I was thinking it's kind of like Art Lab. That's one of our programs. And at Art Lab, we have everything under the sun, from a sock to, oil paint. And all of it is used. And we have these bins that kids can take out. And there's like cardboard and rolling toilet paper rolls and bottle caps from juice boxes, like anything you can imagine, metal scraps. And so for people like your daughter, it's a dream place because they open and that sensory experience of scavenging, they take things, they put it on the table, and then they make something. And then they're super excited and happy. So that space is really good for kids who need that variety and who need to scavenge and who need to have a lot of different options, and that's part of their creative process. But it's also good for kids who come with an idea and they want to do it in a social context, and they want to work over several weeks, and they don't necessarily maybe have the space where they can get messy or have large tables, and that's it's a safe place where they can do that. So Art Lab is great. It's for all ages. It is $15 an hour. It includes the material. If people are really into art, they can buy an art pass. It's $100, and that gives you 10 hours. And that can be used for a family. It doesn't have to be just for an individual, and it doesn't expire. So it's, you can use it for 3 months, not come for 3 months, and then come back 3 months later. So it's a really nice respite place for parents, and a place also for parents to go and bond with their child, or to get ideas on how to do art. And then it can also be a more art in therapy, a more clinical service. So some kids who have individual therapy, we will prescribe them to do extra art in the art space. And there can be some specific goal we work on. So let's say anxiety is a goal. And then they will use the art space to specifically do artwork that is helping with that specific symptom. It could be social skills they're working on and they love art, and that's a great combo because it's motivating to work on social skills when you're doing something you love. So depending on who it is, we can work on different goals. And that's our community space. We also have individual therapy, couples and family therapy. We have a group called Art Club that Natalie knows well. And that's a community group for ages, I would say the youngest might be 5, maybe
5
even,
to 12
yeah,
is the definition.
5 to 12, but we might take a little younger if it's a sibling coming with a sibling, or we might take a little people a little bit older if they really love coming, and then we can assign them roles like helping set up, helping think of what activities. So we mentor them on how to facilitate with us. But because it's a community space, so the whole idea is to be in a part of community with different ages, different abilities, different experiences, and adults sometimes can come too. And that's Saturdays 10 to 12. In the first hour, we do movement. We go outside, and there's some free play, some structured play. And then we go inside the second hour and we do an art. And there's a project that's prepared in advance with a sample, and we teach step by step. And of course, there's always children who don't want to do that. So we have a lot of adaptation possibilities. We have also
including the game table that I run that day.
if a child comes and they play outside, they're happy, they come in and say, oh, I don't want to do that. Then they can also play a game with Natalie for now until she's still here and on as a student. And if there's some sensory needs, we have a lot of system of pulling out for a sensory break. We have sensory toys. They can do a movement break. We have room specifically for that where they can build a fort for 5 minutes and go back in. So it's a great community space for all abilities. We also have a teen group. The model is similar, but we don't have all those different scaffoldings because typically teenagers can regulate a bit better. But we do have, a similar model. And in that group, we tend to teach a DBT skill, so mindfulness, validating self, what's self-regulation, affirmations, reframing thoughts, being mindful in your body, etc. Themes that are helpful for regulation. And then also an opportunity for teens to be with teens and talk about teen life and, and hopefully make connections and friendships. And then there's always an art prompt. Art is part of that. And sometimes we might do a little bit of mindfulness, breathing, stretching, if that's appropriate, if the kids are into it. Teens are a little bit harder to engage, so we really follow their lead. And then we also go out in the community. We do groups for different places, inpatient and crisis units, residential programs, public school, preschool, etc. And we also have a yoga class several days in a week. The teacher is absolutely fabulous. I take the class, I love it. And I teach an improv class for adults on Wednesday nights. And I think that's it. Did I forget anything?
And we have therapeutic mentoring.
And therapeutic mentoring for kids who need a mentor to go in the community with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is that it? Any other questions before I do our survey and closing statements? All right. So as I mentioned in the beginning, these surveys make a huge difference because they allow us to kind of show what we're doing and show the impact we're making in the community. It allows us to continue to offer great programming based on you guys' interests. And it also allows us to continue to apply for grant money to make sure that all of these things are free or low cost to the people that we serve. So far, everything we've done is free. We'd really like to keep it that way. So I'm going to put that in the chat, and I would really appreciate if you guys take a few minutes to fill that out. Otherwise, I just want to make sure that I say thank you to Cecile and Gabby for coming on. That was wonderful.
Thanks
And
for having us.
yeah, and thank you to all of you for your engagement in fostering family resiliency through art. And I'll just take a moment to remind you of our last upcoming events for this semester. So we have one more educator training in the support groups, and I'll put those links in the chat, and I'll also email them to you, so you don't have to fill all this stuff out tonight. I'm also putting the ARTrelief website in the chat. So if that's something, or if the services offered there is something you're interested in, that will be there for you. Same thing, I'll email that out again tomorrow, or in the next couple days as well, probably early next week. I'll make sure all of this info gets out to you. And then finally, just thank you again for taking the time to join us tonight. Your participation in these events is how we make change in our communities and serve the young people who rely on our care to the best of our ability. So we recognize your dedication to your families and yourselves, and we can't make a positive impact without you. So thank you so much for being here, and we hope you have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.
you,
It was such a
Natalie.
pleasure
Thank you.
meeting you all. Thank you.